They live just about 30 minutes south of Jackson.
Yeah, I think I
So
would
I have
go
a-
to that.
I've only been to Ocean Springs there.
Okay. You're
I have
down
a-
the coast
It's
then.
down, yeah.
Yeah.
But you could still feel
That's just
the
easy.
segregation there. It's weird.
I have a great thing to
It
talk
is.
about.
Mississippi.
It is
For the
really
Who's
opener.
listening?
Yeah.
I
I've never really seen
I ran
that.
across
I'm from
this.
Southern California, so it's a big
Right.
melting pot.
I ran across this yesterday with an agent. So, one agent in town with another company is an attorney and has her PhD and stuff like that. One of those type of agents. Well, there's a little battle between our agent and her, and so I called that lady and look, we need to figure out how to make this deal work and blah blah blah. And she goes, well, let me just tell you, first of all, your agent is using terms like our offer, we are doing this, us and stuff, and you don't do that. So she's basically putting herself emotionally in with in the contracts between the buyer and the seller only. And I was like, I gotta think about that. Oh yeah, if you're an attorney, you're going, Your Honor, my client, right? You're not saying we to the judge. And so she kind of had a point, because I hear that all the time with agents where they're
habit.
saying we and us and our, and you gotta totally separate yourself.
But
So go ahead.
to be argumentative,
Yeah.
I can't help it. It's a disease or a condition. We're an advocate, though. We're a fiduciary, so it is we.
No, it's not.
No, if you're in court representing a,
But we're not in court. First of all, we're not in court.
but you're representing
Okay.
somebody, you're an advocate.
Yeah.
Just like an attorney would be.
But I mean, I don't know. There's nothing there that the agent's not violating anything by saying the words we.
You
know?
say my
And
client.
how about this?
So you hear that all the time.
We are doing an inspection.
That if you're showing up, I guess.
So what?
Well, yeah,
No.
yeah, if you're showing up, it's you are doing this, but sure.
But
Yeah.
you say my client is doing an inspection.
But if you say, look, we offered you X
Uh-huh.
amount of dollars and we're gonna give you a carpet allowance of, $5,000 or whatnot, and you turned it down, and so we're thinking that, if you're using that
Yeah.
term, so you took a,
liability.
yeah, it really, there's a battle now over all this stuff,
I
but you can't use that term with this lady.
You still have to keep a
don't think there's.
separation.
I don't think there's any. I see what they're saying, but
Yeah.
it's not like we're violating any kind of license law, any kind of agency level of service by saying the words we. You know what? Hey,
I don't think you're
in
violating.
2015, we won the Super Bowl. You were on the team, Dave? Yeah, left tackle. No, but I'm a Bronco fan, right? People say stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
form of
I don't
speech
think-
too.
I think this lady is looking to measure her thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and she,
And you know what? Oh, excuse me.
This is why I come.
She,
Well, like you said, what repercussions
What thing?
could really come
feet.
from
her feet.
using the first?
So yeah, I think she's looking for a way to say your agent is stupid
right.
because I have a PhD and I'm
Yes.
a
Yeah,
lawyer.
mostly that's
Those
what
are
it
the,
was.
those kinds
She's
of agents.
correcting someone.
And I've had deals with where the client wanted to get a lawyer, and it was actually my client, and the lawyer almost blew the deal up because he didn't know anything about a real estate contract. So just
Yeah.
because you're a lawyer, it's like, I went to the doctor about my knee. Well, what did he say? He said I needed 3 fillings.
Yeah,
So just because they're a lawyer,
So,
Did he say we need free food?
well played.
I don't think
Yeah,
there's
it
anything
does.
wrong with it, it's just, but
Because it's like you become
that
part
was
of their
an
team.
interesting
It's
thing
careful.
that
It's
Yeah.
she was saying that,
Yeah.
I was like, that is interesting, because I hear it all the time. I wonder how that could get us in trouble if there was, so I have to rethink that. But then, another thing I learned with this lady was, I always call, when I have to call as the employee broker and talk to somebody, I always go, hey, can you tell me, you know, what's going on? And I try to like somewhere meet in the middle, because I know one person's selling me and she's got her side.
Yeah, it was
And
one
really you have a
person.
buyer and seller that know nothing about these two agents. You know, basically the buyer and seller hate each other because there's two agents involved.
Right.
Right? Because the buyer could say, well, you tell them blah, blah, blah. And so they come at them, and then, well, you tell them. And so you have these two agents, so I kind of have to find out what their side is. Well, I made a mistake. I called this lady taking my agent's side, and I said, look, we need to figure out how to get this deal done because of this and that. And apparently you're going to call the commission and this and that, you know, like she's all upset. And then she went, okay, are you done accusing me? You know nothing about what's going on. You're literally accusing me of things that you have no idea what's going on, right? And I did kind of say that we need to get this deal done because you're doing this or whatever. And I didn't take the approach of tell me what's going on. And she said that. Normally you should call me and ask me what's going on, you know, and then somewhere meet in the middle. And I was like, oh my goodness, I did. But when I found out she was an attorney and PhD, like that kind of made me realize, you know, I don't know why I did that way, but yeah, it schooled me a little bit because I never do that. But
Has she done a lot of deals?
To get it resolved.
oh man, I'm telling you,
Get it worked out?
she is like the worst
Okay, cool.
person. She is Satan incarnate.
But does her
Because I was
business
gonna
card?
say,
Wrong
coming
thing.
that
I
strong,
realized
you're gonna
during
not
that-
have a lot of people
Yeah.
want to work with you.
Does her business card say tenacity driven?
Well, I think
Right?
there's,
Because I've seen that, and we didn't pick her.
there's nothing that both
Or
sides are doing
they.
wrong. It just is spiraling out of control because this lady is so combative because of the attorney thing, that I feel like all of her clients, they probably connect with her because she's combative. Like she's telling me how horrible agents are in town, how Dora doesn't hold people's feet to the fire, and that all these loser agents, right? Like she is like this way above person. So I realize that she is the one that is, when she goes to clients, she's like, look, all the realtors are horrible, you know, and you want
Yep.
somebody like me because
I'm an attorney. And
That
I
would,
protect
Exactly.
that would be great if she did that.
It's
and
all her
we
marketing.
found that out, we could file a complaint against her. because
Totally,
That is
because
totally against our
It's total
ethics.
total ethics violations.
Yeah,
And
total.
She was
100%.
complaining about our ethics, you know, like I accuse her and all that crap.
That can be
But
her
yeah,
opinion though.
But yeah, I feel like she is probably getting her business. So it's not gonna work between even her clients and the buyer unless we figure out how to back off a little bit and let her clients, because her clients are just like her, obviously. You know,
Right.
they're together.
All business.
Or she's
Yeah.
pitched them that she can do
Is
things.
she representing the buyer or the seller? The
Buyer.
She's representing the buyer. That's tough.
Maybe you should just hire an attorney to finish out the deal with her.
Well, I, at the end of the
To cover your
conversation,
ass, you know?
we totally,
We
it
passed
totally worked out.
inspection and all
Yeah,
that.
attached it up and
Okay,
figured
good, 'cause
things out.
I was
stuff
gonna
like
give you a
that.
name of a guy. Forget about
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Forget about
It was funny.
Are
I
we
said,
still
"Look,"
rolling?
Oh, I forgot already.
I said, look, I can take over the communication if you want to, you know? And she goes, no. She goes, no, because you accused me when you first called me, so I don't want to communicate with you at all. I was like, okay, let's just get this
You
deal
gotta tell us who it is.
finished out. No, I would never.
Yeah, there's so many and PhD JDs. I'm sure you'll never run across.
Because I wanna know whether to wear a
I'd have to
football
go.
helmet with this agent or
I'm
not.
gonna snoop through the MLS
Do we
so I
have it?
figure it
No,
out.
Do we have it?
do we have what?
Is it under contract yet? Yeah, it's under contract, right?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
So
so we're
what-
dealing with stuff right now,
Oh, are they?
but it's okay
over.
because it's all gonna work out. But yeah, I just thought, man, I gotta share this at roundtable because I made a mistake by accusing right away, which I shouldn't have done. And the other agent was using the us, we,
Uh-huh.
and, you know, stuff, and I thought that's a very interesting topic.
Well, yeah, I still don't know why that would offend another agent. you know, we
Tribunal
send you
Lane,
an
I offend
offer.
you
You're
guys all
just
the time.
representing someone. You're not. Your
Right.
opinion doesn't matter. You're just passing on the information of your client. That's why you say, my client this. My client wants to present you an
Well,
offer.
but if I say, oh, we sent that offer, well, I sent the offer. Not they did.
Yes, but
I sent my client's offer.
Yeah,
but here's what happens.
Yeah.
Here's what I think happens. Buyer comes in, let's say 10 grand low, right? And so it's kind of offensive. So let's say the seller's agent calls, hey, you're sending me 10 grand low or whatever. If she goes, or if that agent goes, well, yeah, we feel like that's a good offer because, you know, you guys are too high and, well, she's implicating
Right, okay,
herself
okay.
with the buyer.
Implicated.
right.
When
Yeah.
the buyer might have, you know, because, yeah, she's putting herself in the same category.
Right, it's just like.
Then the
giving
seller
feedback.
Yeah.
goes.
I always say buyer
Opinion.
thinks it sucks.
Exactly.
I don't say
Yeah.
we think it
Right.
sucks.
Buyer wants to offer 10
Right.
grand low because they feel that blah, 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 not we,
Right,
right?
I see that.
So
It
then the
creates an
seller's
argument.
agent goes to the seller and tells him that, well, hey, I talked to this agent and that agent's totally wrong, but she's telling the buyer it's 10 grand too high or whatever, right? So then now the seller's pissed off. But if the two agents keep going back as we and us, they need to go, look, my seller does
Right.
not agree. My seller
Uh-uh.
priced this right.
With
My
your buyer.
buyer says
Yeah.
that,
Right,
right, yeah.
And then you
that's-
two are kind of on the same team, the agents, if you just work
Exactly.
together to work it out.
Yes.
This,
And you
this,
kinda
and
keep
this.
your-
Now they're
yourself set-
fighting.
That's what you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you keep yourself separated
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
you have to find that little line there to keep
but
yourself
I think
separate.
Right.
for the lawyer, I tell my clients this, I say, look, I'm gonna represent you, you know, run through a brick wall. And if somebody starts firing guns at us, I'm gonna stand in front and we're gonna beat these guys.
I don't do that.
But this is a win-win. Ideally, everyone leaves the closing with, they're both winners. You have the keys to their house and they have a bucket of money.
Right.
Okay, now if they're trying to cheat, okay, well, I'm gonna stand in front of it, that's what I get paid to do. But this isn't a court where there's a winner and a loser. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
this is, you know, if we have to get to there, that's when the lawyers come in.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for me, everyone's gonna win. I'm gonna not violate your trust, but the goal is to have two winners here.
That's the objective
yes.
of closing.
But the lawyer is saying, no, there's one winner and it's us.
That's right.
And they're
Not
gonna
everybody
have a
looks at it that
horrible
way.
experience with this jackass.
Yes.
And-
Right.
They're trying to rip somebody off.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, but if you have two attorneys representing somebody in a court, right? Usually the two attorneys have a dialogue and respect for each other.
right.
And that's not happening right now.
But they're still
With
trying,
the
but
two-
the lawyer's objective is to have the other guy lose.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Yes.
And in-
Yeah.
and-
That's the way she
And in
looks
a
at
real
the whole
estate,
Yeah,
transaction.
right,
if that's
yeah.
if that's how you're going into
From
it,
a
and
lawyer's
training
perspective.
and prepping your clients for this war,
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, it's a shame.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
much different.
I mean, and sometimes it's that way because
She's
people
doing them a
are pulling
disservice.
shenanigans, you know?
Yeah.
But I also, I mean, I've dealt with almost every major realtor in this town on one side of a transaction or another, and it is, there's a lot of them that feel that they need to make it harder than it needs to be just to justify that 3% or 2% commission.
Sure.
They start
Whatever
pricing
it is.
their
So-
value.
They stir the pot a
That's
little bit to
interesting.
make it
That's
look like
interesting.
it's a really hard.
I mean, and it is, you can tell where it is, I mean, it's
Flexing,
forced,
kinda
right?
Yes.
It's,
Yeah.
well, let's push back on this
So much of it.
just to get a reaction so that they can have a solution. Because,
Yeah.
Oh, that
you know,
just-
where there is no
And their
real
people are
problem.
just
Brexit for
stressed out to
everybody.
the bone
It's
through the
not
whole
a
thing.
nightmare, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
They
I'm
just-
serious. I had two offers that were very close, and it was my listing, and we had business cards because they were leaving cards, and I said, okay, this one, I know this person. I've worked with them. This one, her card says, you know, Jane Doe, tenacity driven. So, my opinion, this person is going to be a pain in the ass the whole time. they're gonna ask for 87 things on inspection. They're gonna, you know, they're train her clients to hate you. And,
ultimately,
and the husband
that's
said,
what-
"You know what? I'll bet you're right. Let's
That's
go."
you earning your commission rate there, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we're not taught to say those kind of things in the school. I
Tenacity.
mean, we're not
driven.
taught
The
to say that
attorney.
we
It's
can
like,
have
that's
that
great. If I needed
conversation with the
an
client.
inside linebacker.
But that's the fiduciary duty
Caffeine
that
driven.
you're
Yeah.
responsible to give if
Well,
you
no,
have the
that's
experience, right?
Yeah.
that-
Normal?
That's a right.
That lady's sales
That's
is
a
gonna go down
constitutional
because
right.
more agents will get wind of the way she does business. And
Yeah.
then they'll just overlook her offer.
So let me ask you this.
I just
Are
wanna
we
look it up.
salespeople? Or are we, like, we're
Counselors.
taught? Yeah, we're not supposed to be attorneys.
Your representatives.
Right? I feel like we're more,
Transactional.
yeah,
Conduit.
relational
You're a
type
conduit.
of people
Yeah.
that can do paperwork.
I got
You
my
know?
license for
Because-
that reason because I would have these conversations with agents, and I thought, man, just because you are licensed to adapt a pre-written contract doesn't make you a flippin' attorney.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And when they're coming to me as a lender, getting how should I write this? Like not going to their managing broker,
Right.
and I shouldn't, but I'm fabricating how to write it to keep the peace. I thought, man, like I could do this. I don't know how to get a license to do this, but many agents,
I think most
just
is
because
fair.
most is probably fair,
Betcha.
right? I mean, it is
Right here,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Additional provisions.
Let me.
I put on my Perry Mason coat.
Yeah, exactly. But it creates this tension, man. It doesn't make for a smooth flowing transaction when you get two of them like that.
Yeah.
Holy shit, it's crazy. But yeah, it is tough. Just because you're not practicing law, but you are practicing law. I've had people tell me that. Well, I'm practicing. I've got the limited ability to practice law,
Limited,
which
yeah.
we all do, right?
Yeah.
But
Within the
like, you don't have
context
to.
of the
You're not a
forms.
lawyer. Like
Right,
don't act like a lawyer.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're more of a counselor.
I always
than you
tell
are a
the
lawyer.
clients, like, okay,
Yeah.
if you do this and try to get out of the contract right now, based on what you're saying, what I want to say is, you're going to lose your earnest money.
Mhm.
But I'm not a lawyer. So
Right,
say,
exactly.
you're at risk of losing your earnest
Yeah.
money.
Right.
There could be arbitration or
You know?
something.
The explanation, I think, has been lacking for a long time.
Well, yeah, we're not CPAs, we're
Yeah.
not attorneys, we're salespeople, really, if you really think about it. And it's all relational. We just have to have the knowledge to do the contracts and put pieces of puzzles together, you know, because there's a lot of puzzles. I mean, can you imagine if we didn't have a title company to help us on stuff? That would
There'd be
a
lawsuits like
nightmare.
crazy.
I know.
Oh my God.
You know, you guys help us with some of their stuff, and then the lender has all their stuff.
Mhm.
Like, we're just out there.
And we're all neutral. We're neutral in the deal, and so
Right.
like what Dave was saying, our objective is everybody's win-win at that closing table, and our objective is everybody walks away happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And protected.
And sometimes it's the agents who have done something with their clients that have made them on edge, and it hasn't been a smooth process, and so
Yeah.
then by the time you get there, those people are so stressed out that they just want it done, you know, and so there's no real like
But that is a right? That's a sales tactic for
yeah.
many people.
Absolutely.
They're stressed
The
about
fear.
so much.
fear.
That fear factor that, I got to make
I
this
wouldn't-
so difficult for people
Right.
that I look like the hero when we get to closing.
Those people
Yeah.
suck.
I
That's just a horrible way to
brutal.
operate with people.
That's tough.
I had a deal
You've
where
been doing this as
the
long as
other
I have.
agent told me,
It sucks.
my buyers, or my sellers hate your buyers. They hate
Yes.
your clients.
I've had that
And I'm
multiple
like,
times.
well, let's do a separate room closing then.
Yes.
You know what?
And they never
Yeah.
even saw the whites of each other's eyes.
You know, and
Yeah.
she's like,
They're
well,
just battling it out, or their agents were battling.
they don't have any other availability, so we just have to do it in one. So I'm driving, I'm late for closing, and I'm like, oh crap, they're gonna be doing the pile driver on somebody. I'm like, oh crap, and I'm running red lights, and I get there, and the closer isn't in there yet, and the other agent's in there, and my guy is giving them a recipe for lemon pound cake or something. And I'm like,
Wait a minute.
Where'd all this stress come from?
Oh, or maybe it was the other way around. She was giving my guy a recipe for something. I'm like, if
Everything's
there's
fine.
X-Lax in it, don't do it. Okay? So it was like, it's like, where did that come from, you know?
Yeah.
But they were pissed. They took it personally when we did our inspection
Yeah,
notice.
yeah.
Fear.
And people have their
And
different tactics
They're
to,
just, you know, and then,
Yeah.
to secure their deals.
but to say that to me, I'm like, oh man, you know, I go to closing and I'm like, okay, take your aspirin.
Yeah, yeah.
I get my check, I'm like, okay, just so you know, I'm running to the bank. I'm turning off my phone. Okay.
That's so funny.
Don't call me. My phone's off until I get my deposit receipt.
And the agents actually take it for everybody, like the lenders and the, you know, like, there's so many people in the background. The agents, you know, if there's anything that goes wrong, it's like the agent's fault.
Yes, 'cause
Right?
you're that representative. You're
Right,
that person.
so I remember being at Heritage Title one time, and I'm sitting there with my seller, and the buyers are sitting on their side of the table, and the guy goes, "What the heck is? Why is my interest rate, you know, this amount? Blah blah blah." And he's signing some disclosure, and he's like talking to the title person and the closer, and she's like, "I don't know. I don't know exactly what that is." And I go, I think what that is the APR. You know, you just have your right, and I say something from across the table, and he goes, "Oh yeah," and he thought I was the lender, right? His lender. He thought I was his
And then
lender.
you're going to be in the line of
He
fire.
just never saw his lender,
Yeah.
so he got up and mooned me, and he's like, "Hey, you mother!" You know, he's like cussing at me, and my seller. I hate lenders too. Hey, that's my realtor. That's my realtor. That is not your lender. He's just trying to help you.
Yeah, see,
Nice.
But see, that's
He
we,
was so angry.
and that just goes. You know, some agents don't give their clients all the information of how things are going to go.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
So that actually, this was the conversation I was just having. That's why I was a little bit late. So the earnest money. Do you guys all have your conversations with clients on where earnest money can come from?
I tell them, just don't steal it.
No, we don't have that
Properly laundered.
conversation.
So this is a great learning lesson.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
So this is a $1.1 million purchase price.
Yeah.
Guess where their earnest money came from? A
Their
credit
parents?
card advance.
Oh my goodness.
So guess what is not a viable earnest money?
it's credit card
Card
stuff.
advance.
Yeah,
It's
right.
behavior.
So
But
for
wait.
multiple reasons,
I'm getting double points.
yeah, totally fine. If a lender says, "Hey, we just need to do an amendment to remove the earnest money," it can be unsigned. Just have a conversation with the listing agent. We're just going to remove it right at closing, and the title company will refund it back to the buyers. Outside, it just can't be on the settlement sheet. Pretty easy solution.
Wow. I didn't
Ask a
even do that.
family member. Ask.
No, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like it just like you just remove it. They're doing 100% financing. They got money. It's fine. They just get it.
100% finance.
They just remove it, sign the addendum at the end,
And no earnest.
and then you're removing the earnest money. But again, you're doing it at the end.
closing.
I'm not asking you to
Yeah.
sign it
Yeah.
3 weeks in advance. I mean, I've done that where I've replaced it and with viable funds.
Yeah.
But this one was like they don't have any other money. I don't know why the hell they're buying $1 million house, but
Right.
it's-
Wow!
Ugly. I'm like,
And
these
they don't
people
have
are buying
earnest
$1 million
money.
houses.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 grand
Yeah.
earnest
Yeah.
money.
That's
It was
a
a credit
How
card.
do they qualify
They qualify.
for
'Cause
100% finance?
You can do
Yeah.
60% debt ratio on a VA loan. As long as you meet the residual income, you can do it. I wouldn't advise it, but
Well, so with
So,
my
but yeah,
buyers,
that's-
I do say, okay, this has earnest money, because especially first-time home buyers,
Yeah.
right? They,
Right. Which
they
they are, by
don't
the way.
even
Yeah.
know.
these guys are, by the way.
Okay, so I tell
Yeah.
them, I go, okay, there's a thing called earnest money. This one is $4,000.
Yeah.
Is that going to be okay for you guys? Do you have 4,000 for earnest money? And they're like, oh man, I don't. I go, how much could you come up with? And they're like, a couple grand or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I changed the earnest money in my contract to 2,000 instead of 4,000.
Right.
And I tell them these are first-time home buyers. They don't have the 4,000. They have the 2. And so, but I don't ask them, are you going to
Where's
take
it
this from a
coming from?
credit card? Like
Yeah.
they could
Yeah.
be thinking in their head, I'll borrow it from my parents. I can get it from somewhere.
So that was the argument I
But
just
a lot
had
of
with
people
this
do
agent.
think about their credit
was,
card.
Did
That's
you
like a
have,
go-to.
I asked the agent, did you have the conversation about earnest money? No.
I know, but
So don't yell at me.
have you ever
Good
had a
public
conversation
service.
about where they get it? I've never had a.
I asked them if they have it, and then
Me too.
And then if it's a conventional loan, and they don't have it, I asked the lender, can they get a gift? I know FHA.
I have asked.
You can do it
that
on
before.
any of them.
But I didn't. You know,
Yeah.
if I don't know, I go to the lender.
Yeah.
You know, but I tell
Yeah.
them the thing that a lot of people are like, "Oh, geez, man, I got to have down payment, and I got to have closing costs. Now I have to have earnest money." And main thing I explain to them is, this is what it does. It's basically the seller is taking their house off the market while we perform the contract,
Yeah.
right? And so this is basically a security deposit that says we're going to perform our contract
Yes.
because they're taking it off the market. And if we breach the contract, the
Right.
seller gets it. And I tell them, but if we have our outs where we get it back, but I tell them that comes off the top.
It gets
Okay,
credited
this
back.
goes into
Yeah.
the pie. It's not additional money. It's a prepayment for your closing cost or whatever. So, because a lot of times they're going, oh crap, I don't know if that's extra money. I know it's
No,
just
it's a deduct-
it's
it's
early
deducted.
money.
Right, early
You know,
on.
so that's my big.
And you can take it down to
conversation.
$500. You can take it down to $100.
I do promissory
But you
notes
said
for-
zero. You
I
said they
had
go to zero.
Just recently,
Well, that is removing it at the end. So if
Yeah.
you remove it at the end, then I don't have to prove where it came from. So it's not a debit or a credit.
It doesn't
okay.
show up on
You
the
remove
closing
it at
disclosure.
the end. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's still sitting there, and then the contract's executed right before the seller signed their piece,
Okay.
and then it's
but yeah, you know, like they obviously they have what they ask for earnest money, and like you said, you can offer them anything.
Yes.
So, I mean, the house is like 700,000. They wanted $8,000. I think I made it 6,500.
Right.
Apparently, the agent did not pay any attention to that whatsoever. And then when we turned it in, he called me. He was pretty irked.
Oh.
Well, we were asking $8,000 in earnest money. I said,
So the contract's at
I said, well,
$5.
I understand that. I saw that, but we put 6,500 in the contract that we signed. Like,
So here's what you say.
we were asking you to read the contract.
Yeah. You're bad.
Your seller agreed
yeah.
to that by
Yeah.
signing the contract.
Right, not we.
Yeah.
Your seller agreed to it.
My
Yeah.
seller.
I wasn't even in town that day.
I said, I
What
assumed
about-
if that was a problem,
Why?
they would have put that in the counter along with the other
Counter
things
that,
that
yeah.
you countered us. So
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
do, I
but
do
yeah, he was
promissory
pretty
notes.
irked. And I was like,
Yeah.
I haven't done a promissory note in a while, but we used to do that a lot for VA
Right.
deals where they didn't have money for anything.
Yeah.
Just do a
about,
promissory note for earnest money.
What about out of a line of credit?
As long as it's secured to a property, secured borrowed funds are viable. But credit cards, if it's not secured to anything, or if it's cash also, please don't
Yeah.
do that.
I usually tell
Can't
people.
document where it came from. You got Anti-Money Laundering Act stuff we all
Right.
have to work with.
But anybody can come up with $100. I would rather not do a promissory note.
Yeah, right. That's
So
like a
I'd be
whole nother loan.
$100.
I've seen a
Right.
lot of bank statements, dude. NSF, doing,
I'm
doing.
buying a $500,000 house. I don't have $100. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Are you asking them that question when you're qualifying them?
I am, because
Yeah.
I made that
As the
mistake
lender.
25 years ago where
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So now it's part of the
Because the
conversation.
agent and
A
the
good
lender
lender should, right?
Yeah. I think I kind of thought the lender was covering that.
But it's not our gig though.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the reasons this one came up. The second part of that conversation was that one of my loan officers asked me, "Are you talking to agents about the buyer's agency agreement? Because a lot of these big national lenders are now asking for your buyer's agency agreement to see what their required commissions are."
Whoa.
So, because now, I mean, we have it covered pretty well in Colorado based on Section 29.
Yeah.
It's pretty transparent.
Yeah.
But not every state is like that. You know, I mean, you see a Tennessee contract that's 2 pages, the one from Maine is like 5 pages. It doesn't list any of that in there.
Wow.
So, but think about that same buyer that put their earnest money on a credit card. They've got not a pot to piss in. They need 10 grand for down payment, closing costs, everything like that. You're only getting 2% from the seller, and they have to come up with another 5 grand for you for your commission. But that kills the deal. So that's why a lender would ask for that, because we need to know, even though it says the seller's going to pay 2.5, they still might be required. I mean, you know, our box 20, whatever it is, UP box 29B, right? So it would say that, and you'd get that agreement and know the figures. But if you're in Idaho, you don't have that.
Yeah, right.
So you'd have to
yeah.
know, and then at the last minute, of course, you guys would yell at us as a lender. Why didn't you ask for this? Why didn't you say you had enough money we could close? And we didn't know the numbers. So if we don't know the numbers, they're required to come in with extra money. That could be a deal killer.
But when you said it's not our gig, you know, it is your
It's
gig.
everybody's gig.
Like it used to be,
Yes.
right, it used to be the lender wasn't licensed and everything like that,
Yeah.
and we had to totally take control of everything.
100%.
Now I completely release it to you guys, which you guys agree with now, because you hated it when we used to take control. Right,
Yes.
because we didn't know lending, you know, and so all of a sudden we hand you all the control, and you're like, "That's not my gig." I don't think so anymore. When they come in and say I have no money, that's your gig.
It is 100% our gig to communicate with you guys. I don't know. Maybe one of your
Howard,
buddies.
I'm just waiting for that.
But somebody in your side, I'm pretty sure I was like, you can't. They don't have money for earnest money. I don't know which agent I was working with.
Yeah,
but it was in here. I was like, they don't have any money for earnest money. Like, one, they probably shouldn't be buying a house, but they can make it work. You can afford it. But I think it was Daniel's client. I was like, she doesn't have money to write an earnest money check. You either need to, you know, we're getting money from the seller for all the closing costs. But so yes, I have that conversation. It's
Yeah.
a mutual conversation that we should have.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen all the time.
I
Somebody goes to
mentioned
some
it
online
Because
lender and
I
they're
learned
like,
the hard way. I'm like,
but it is a line item in the
sign here,
contract. I kind of feel
and
like,
I need a check for $1,000. For what? For earnest money.
yeah,
What's earnest money?
We
Well,
don't-
you do have to explain earnest money.
Yeah, but I mean, this was, you know, I've been in this for like, I don't know, a year maybe. And it's, you know, it's like, I explained everything, and she says, well, we don't have it.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, can you get a gift from a family member? Well, we'll check. And of course, they disappeared into the darkness.
And you just showed him 30 homes.
No.
Unfortunately,
No, but that happens.
27.
27.
That's why it's very
Yeah,
important.
so now I'll just, and you can just bring it up. Oh, I like this. Great. Well, it's at 2,800 square feet. It's priced at $358, and they're asking for $5,000 in earnest money that you put down when we present the contract. Oh, okay. Now I've just told them about it.
yeah.
So you don't have to do the.
It is. I got a real estate
Tutoring.
license, so I could have the same conversations that I was having before, but go, I have that license too. So
Yeah, I'm
here's
a
what all
realtor
this
too,
stuff
so
means.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Here's what, so I could explain things better to both sides, not just the buyer,
Yeah,
but the listing
right.
agent, the buyer's agent, whoever. But that, man, there's a lot of people that don't explain shit.
Anything.
And they don't. And our verbiage, the stuff that we know, we think that everybody knows what we know.
Yeah.
And they don't know what earnest
Right.
money is.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't even know what title insurance. They don't know anything.
They don't know. It's just
They're
like what the
babies.
doctor says.
Right.
I'm afraid it's hydrophenosis of the kidney. I'm like, oh my God!
Yeah, the
Oh
worst.
no, you're
thing,
fine.
Yeah, the worst thing is to assume that they know,
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
and because we do this every day, these people don't.
They
And
don't.
so Cheryl, that you came to that class where Cheryl was
Yeah.
speaking. I mean, that was one thing she mentioned that I learned something new every day. But when you're asking that question, have you not necessarily have you bought a house before, right? Because have you bought a house in 2025? Because that process in 2010, 2005,
Yes.
2000 is totally different,
Sure.
right? So have you bought a house in 2025? No? Okay, let me explain this process to you so you can kind of open the door to that
Yeah.
conversation of the way it needs to go now, not why do I need to give you my W-2 or why do I need to
Yeah. Well,
This
the
is-
next
this
thing
is
they
the way it
say
works
is
now.
I used to be a realtor in 2005. I know it. Oh, okay, great.
Oh, sweet.
It's like you definitely need to do
Three
like
houses in my lifetime.
doing the best service.
I
You
know
need to
it's
do a full consultation.
Yeah, it takes,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and this kind of plays into the way that you'll make money going in the
Yeah.
future selling your process.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, if you think about the way our industry has gone, back in the day, I would sit down with them at my office. We'd go look at homes. I'd go over a contract, and I'd go over every page, and they would sign it with a pen.
Yeah.
And we'd fax it, right? Now I'm literally going on CTM, typing up a contract, going sign this, and they just go sign. We signed it. So that is like scary.
Well,
because they
I
don't
do-
even know. Like you could buy if you don't go over that contract and go, you guys have to have $2,000 in earnest money. You know, we have to do our inspection by X date or whatever. You could have some problems because we had an agent in here last week that the buyers needed more time for a resolution. And the seller said, no, we're not amending more time. Because you know how people put the objection, the resolution might be 24, 48 hours, but they had a problem with the roof or something, and they needed to get a roofer out there, but they weren't gonna meet the 48 hours, and so they needed more time, and someone said, no, we're not giving you more time. So they had, so you could imagine the dates are so stinking important for us. We need to allow ourselves some time, especially if we suspect that the roof could be bad or suspect, don't crunch yourself in the 24-hour period
Yeah.
and your sellers, because they just sign.
they're trusting you.
That's right.
They're trusting your professionalism.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, even the lady that I have that she only speaks Spanish. I went to her house and I went through every single contract with her, and I had her son, translate it all for me. And I was like, does she understand what this paragraph means? Does she
Good.
understand all this? Because it's very important she understands
Yeah.
what all this is,
Right, yeah.
so nothing bad happens.
So she- yeah,
So
doesn't
I
get
do
sued.
that with every single client, going through every single contract, every paragraph, explaining. I don't read the paragraph. I just kind of.
And her son is
summarize what the
8.
paragraph says.
Yeah.
He's only 8 years old.
No, he's like 20.
Signing
Terminate
crayon.
that.
Did you say
His writing looks like it.
Very important.
I'm so sorry, but red, we can't use red. Purple's fine. Purple crayon. is fine.
But I think it's very important to
Yeah.
go through every single thing, and also it shows your expertise of, hey, you understand what's in the contract,
Absolutely.
you understand the process and all that stuff too.
Really, if you
That's
just
your
go
value.
through the timetable, you cover it. You cover the contract for the most part.
Yeah.
You know.
A lot of time for first time homebuyers too, like I try to give them something printed out because especially like these are the important dates that you need to make sure that you hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
I'll give them
And
that
then-
e-calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send them that e-calendar. I'll say you can print this and put it on your fridge because it's a much
That is incredible.
Yeah.
nicer way of
because when
seeing
you
the
sit there
deadline.
and you
Uh-huh.
go through that entire contract,
And they're like,
that is you're hitting them with so much information that
Yeah.
they can't retain it
Yeah.
all. You know
And
what I
that
mean? And
30
I'll
to
get
45
questions
days.
later from first time homebuyers. Well, I really thought we were making them an offer of like $265, and I go, well, we did basically make them an offer of $265, but no, your loan amount's $280. You got $15,000 to pay your closing costs and do a 2-1 rate buy down.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Really, they
Like,
don't get it.
Yeah, no.
like,
Would you guys want
buy
to do a CT, if we can have somebody come in here and teach us some CTM stuff? Like, I feel like I want that. I only know enough to get my stuff out, but like that calendar thing. I
I
mean,
know CTM like the back of my hand.
Do you?
I know.
There's
you
a
click-
new one that's
Oh, there's
come-
so many things.
Well,
There's a
can't
new
you-
one that's come out now that uses CTM, but CTM's real limited. So they're using CTM as the foundation, but it's called Get In Contract, GIC. And we just had a presentation last week with these people, and it's like $30 cheaper than CTM.
Wait, they're going to actually use CTM?
Yeah, it's built into their thing, so you can still do your contracts and all of that
CTM
stuff.
allows that?
But it's
so the
yeah,
two
they
platforms can, so I can,
You can,
And then it invites everybody involved in the transaction to it, so title
let's
gets
wait.
it.
well, let me tell you something. CTM is not going away. You remember when PPAR, well, you don't remember that, but
Transaction desk.
PPAR
Yeah.
tried to make us use transaction desk. And it was like when PayPal came up and everybody's using PayPal and then BillPoint tried to take over. They couldn't, they went bankrupt.
GIC, get in
But
contract.
nobody is gonna give up CTM, ever. Like,
All of
because
Denver.
it all connects us together.
Yeah,
and-
first of all, don't move my cheese. And that's what that is. So,
Yeah, some things don't
they'll
need
never
to be
find it,
touched.
you
Well,
know?
CTM's
Right.
about to have a whole refresh, upgrade, and everything. They announced it like a year ago, and it will probably come out probably next year. But they're revamping every single thing in CTM. They're making
Oh,
they're making it
Probably because all these
Well, let's
companies
wait and
are,
take the class then.
But it's AI, it just does it for you.
Well, they're making it so instead of going through the whole contract and filling out the boxes or whatever, it'll like, they call it smart contracts, but it'll say like,
I hate that.
hey, here's the
Yeah.
little thing of what you say, what do you want to put in there? And so it's less, reading the whole contract and more just giving you the points of what you need to fill out.
I got
Oh, wow.
so there's all these
Hey.
companies
But
who are
that's kinda
scrubbing their
You know,
information.
and sometimes
and
you can ask
using
them
Well,
the-
about
that,
stuff
that,
and-
it's,
Yeah.
so
I got the
MRI
wrong
bought
realtor on the
CTM.
contract the other day.
Who did?
MRI.
Oh, that's right, that's
So
right.
they're integrating MRI with this other.
That's the smart
company.
contracts, right?
Yeah, so they're integrating it. So MRI also bought this other guy's software who made it in Denver, who was kind of like the whatever you're talking about, the contract thing.
Uh-huh.
GIC.
And yeah, GIC. So they're taking his software and they're integrating it with.
That's what
CTM
they're doing,
because
yeah.
they bought both
That's-
companies, and so then they're gonna.
Something like that,
They
yeah.
announced it like a year ago, and I asked for the beta, but they didn't give it.
I
just
can
was
get you
like,
guys a demo if
too
you want. They'll
many-
come down here and demo it for you.
Yeah.
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 That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
next
that's gonna
year,
work out
hopefully
great.
that's gonna
I think
come
we-
out.
'Cause the
Well, I
brokers are
just
gonna
want
have
to make
do
sure
Yeah.
that I can
Yeah,
integrate
right.
my
Yeah.
contract with the other agent.
So-
That's exactly right.
So that when
Absolutely.
somebody signs, I get an email.
Yes,
And then I
exactly.
can go to bed without.
But it's all going to change because
Well, that
the
waiting for the
internet's
fax
going to a
deadline.
different level
Yeah.
as well. So smart contracts, when you're
Exactly.
talking about that, that's going to change the whole industry, right? That's what we're afraid of.
Yeah.
It's only offered on the
I'm
dark
getting
web.
so old.
Yeah, it's
Oh, no.
but that's what they're saying that within the next 10 years, where the business is going to smart contracts and. all
But you
this
think
stuff.
about that, so I've got a transaction going. One of my neighbors, they had their house listed as a for sale by owner for, they were like 1.2 or something. And then some friends, clients of mine that live a little further down, they are now buying it after 4 months. And there's $70,000 worth of commissions in there.
Uh-huh.
But they could have, and they know each other, and they could have done that transaction with a smart contract and saved that difference in commissions.
Or they could.
This is where it's going,
They
right?
could
This
pay
is
$5,000 to an attorney.
This is gonna say.
This
Yeah.
Or a
is
couple
where,
grand to
where
an
people have
attorney.
this option now.
So the viability, and lending's the same way. I mean, lending's no different. A monkey could, if you're a W-2 buyer, you could go online and get AI and cut us completely out of it.
So how does that work? Because Chris's cousin just did that. I heard last night. He said, I just bought a house through AI. I thought I'd try it out and it worked. How do you buy a house through AI?
You thought
Because
to
it's
try
all-
it out.
Pretty standard contracts.
I mean, it's all
Just
contracts,
asking-
so it's all
Sugar-free
automated.
Fruit Loops are great, you know. I
Yeah.
just tried
Did
it
a
out.
class on ChatGPT.
That would be a good.
I mean, didn't you
Huh.
did you guys see
Intro to
Elon's
AI kind of stuff.
robots cutting wheat the other day out there? There's a bunch of robots in the
What?
field cutting wheat, right? Like this is where it's going.
Wow.
Like from the lending side, the viability is, I mean, most people do an online application for me. I mean, if it's tight enough and you ask the right, it's a standard ERLA 1003 application. It's pretty, I mean, if you've been on the same job for a few years, you're pretty straightforward W-2 income, you got assets. I mean, nowadays, even our system will just connect right, if you click the right button, it will go into your Wells Fargo account or your B of A account. It'll pull your statements for you. So
Wow. It's
you
gonna be
don't have to
future.
even. it's-
And I'm starting to
it's
see these
all
different
easy.
things on Facebook too, of like different ways of real estate contracts and getting paid where I've never seen this stuff like advertised like this before. You know, it's
I mean, you
almost,
don't have to use a real estate
no.
contract unless you're a licensed realtor.
Yeah, you don't.
I've bought 3 or 4 of them where I just filled out a couple pieces of
Uh-huh,
paper. I
right.
got a name,
Yeah, yeah.
got a name and a sale price and an address.
You can write it out on a piece of paper. It's
Yeah.
a contract.
So it's it is interesting to see but I think our value is going to come with the hard ones. You know,
Yes.
for sure. I
Right.
mean, I know my value comes with an FHA manual underwrite or some VA buyer that's got no money, or you know what I mean. Like I can educate somebody and show my value to the buyer and the agent.
Right, sure.
If you got, I don't know, I just pulled one today. He's got an 805 credit score, buying $1 million house, putting $600,000 down. They don't need me. They don't need me to tell them anything. They could go
Right, yeah.
online and do any of it,
Yeah.
figure it out. So
Oh,
what
What
is
if-
our value as a realtor? Where's that gonna be in 5 years?
5 years.
I don't know. I think a lot of us will be retired. The whole system's gonna change.
Living in a van down by the
Everything's
river.
gonna be tokenized.
I'm going back to school for something
Yeah,
in the
they're gonna-
medical field,
They're
okay?
gonna tokenize everything and make it into AI.
Even
That's what they're
surgeons
gonna
use it. I
Well,
mean,
did you know that Rocket just bought Redfin?
do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that the day after Charles like
Rocket bought
transferred
what?
over.
Redfin.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
shitting me.
yeah.
Isn't there laws for?
What
This
is,
is why.
Well, as we've seen
I'm
in
curious,
the
what
past
is the
10
least
years.
amount of money that you could put down and buy land?
To buy land.
Yeah, to buy land. Are there any?
Security services used to have a 10% down deal. Ours is 25% if it's improved land. So if you've got utilities up to it and all that stuff. If it's like a hunting property, most of those are 35% down. Like no utilities, there's like,
Yeah, my husband's
Just
got
raw
like
land.
utilities and a barn and 35 acres, but like, yeah, I'm pretty sure these people don't even have 10%.
yeah.
So,
It's when you're looking at lending,
you know, I didn't know if there was
You
any
always-
special anything out there, you
Yeah.
know. but-
80-10-10, remember those?
80-10-10s, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Eight,
Yeah.
10.
Used to
First
be
and a
able to-
second at the same time.
Yep.
Those
Actually,
come-
I
those
remember
come out
80-20s
again?
too.
I'm seeing no income, no asset products.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
there's a whole. I just had
How is
this,
that
I'll
coming
get ready to
back?
pounce if that
Yeah.
I'm jumping on that.
I just had this
bandwagon.
conversation with my wife. I mean, that's so the you guys know about the DSCR loans, so debt service ratio coverage loans, and that's banks have been using them forever. So if you want to buy an investment property, if your rent's $1,000, your payment it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Some of them are a little bit less, but most of them are a little higher. So if you can get $1,000 for rent and your payment's $1,000, you can buy the house. So
Are you talking about an
Are you-
investor or a renter that's
investment property, yeah.
An investor's
so like if you're
buying.
With
and
how
you-
much down?
Depends to get to that ratio. Most of them are at least
So you know,
10%.
Oh,
down.
I
If you have a
got you.
break,
So you
gotta
can make
put it down
zero
to where
money.
it'll
land
equal
so that the
to-
rent covers the payment.
Mhm.
or you could have zero income and still get that
Mhm.
loan.
And you don't even have to own a primary residence for most of them, which is
Will you send me
ridiculous.
something about that?
I hate them.
Yeah.
They're awful. They're terrible. Yes, I will send you. But I will tell you why they're awful, because most people do exactly what I just did. I just piqued your interest. Send me, what do you got? What do you got?
What's the catch?
But guess what? Yeah, well, the catch is that it's a 10.5% interest rate.
Oh,
So in order to get
there
to a
we go.
1-to-1 ratio, you got to put 40%
it's
down.
negative
So it's the-
amortization.
no. It's not
You just
negative.
have- you got-
But it's
But to get-
10%.
To get to a, if you're collecting $1,000 for rent, to get your payment to $1,000
50-year
bucks, you got to put down
A bunch
this-
of money.
Oh,
much
down
money.
payment.
And
So
you
some
get
douche-
10.5%.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
I know
loan
advantage.
officer comes in and is
Yeah,
like,
no.
hey, I got one of
Outside.
these. Look what I got. Look what I got. I got one of these. And you just bit. Send me what you got, man. Let's go.
That's called hard money.
Yeah,
But it's-
that's hard money.
So
That's
yeah,
hard.
so like a lot of us that have portfolio products, you could do something better. You could do something
With that
better
money
with
down.
less down, or even with the loan level pricing adjustments for Fannie and Freddie. But it's if you got 1099, if you got I don't know, there's all kinds of whacked out products now. Not as bad as it used to be. Most of them are limited on loan to value, like 1 year 1099. There's 12-month bank statements, 24-month bank statements, where they just look at your bank statement. Whatever's deposit is, they got some restrictions in there, but that's your income. Now you can go buy it. The downside is I get bitched at for rates in the 7s, 6s and 7s, and when you're telling somebody, hey, your rate's 9.5, 10%, they're like, ooh, I don't want to do that.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's-
If values are going up.
That's what's happening
you
out
could
there
take
right
that
now.
risk and refi in a year or two, but we don't know that values are
But
going up
nobody
very
does
much
it.
right now.
Right.
Yeah, everything's
Coming
kinda-
down.
There are some funky loans out there. I mean, there's definitely EIN, like where you're just basically a tax number.
Yeah.
You can do those. The I-10 loans, like I know a guy doing those at 100%. I can't.
I-10, what's that?
So you're basically a green card. You've got a not even a green card. Sorry, your I-10 is just that you have a taxpayer identification
But no
number.
social security number.
I-10, yeah.
So we can do them on our EINs now, like if we had a corporation?
What are the rates on those?
Terrible.
Terrible.
Oh, we're talking.
So
There's no advantage.
when you get loan officers in here going, hey, I got one of these, I got one of these,
Yeah.
you just know that there's some
As
tax.
low as
So basically-
3.99.
So basically what you're saying is, what can I do to get you into this loan?
Today.
Yeah. So there are tons of those out there.
Oh my
Oh,
god. That's crazy.
interesting.
But they are,
We're
so
in an
the
interesting
the most
spot
recent
right
one I
now.
just heard is,
So cool.
I can't remember the name of it now. But there's a group, so say you wanna just move around the country, so for these DSCR loans, they're actually not taking an annual lease agreement, but you could rent a room, all these places that just rent a room, they'll allow you to buy a house at whatever DSCR ratio, say it's 1%, instead of $1,000 for the house, now you've got 4 bedrooms, you can now use $4,000 to qualify for that house in your DSCR calculation because it's part of this, I wish I remember the group, but it's some big national, so you can kind of move, if you want, every month you want to go to a different state and you
Yeah.
just buy into one of these rooms for
Stressful.
I just said to my wife the other day, I'm like, it's all coming back. It's all gonna collapse again.
Yeah.
Bad for
10 years.
appraisers.
Yeah.
10 years,
So like if you had
guaranteed.
somebody, like I've
Be
heard
totally
that
different.
one of my past clients, she just started being a what is that, flight attendant, right?
Yeah,
So like
crash pads.
crash pads.
Yep.
She
Oh.
wants to buy a place up in Denver and make it a crash pad because you
Whoa.
can charge
I like
people
that.
That's
like
a bad term
X number
for a
of
flight attendant.
Yeah,
That's horrible.
But yeah, she was like, I get
gotta
all my
market
friends,
this
you
better.
know, they'll pay me money on a monthly basis, and they
my
can go
husband's a
there. They've
pilot,
got a
and
room
they
to sleep
use
in
the
whenever
term
they
crash
need
pad
it.
too. That's
Yeah.
even worse, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do that with like cars, same thing. They're Toro. Does anybody rented from Toro?
Yeah. Well, all those
I had to turn a kid away
The
because
Toro
he had 7 car
guy
payments at $1,000.
in New Orleans, was
But he's
Toro.
making a shitload of money. I
And
mean, he's
the
making
guy
like 20
in
grand a
Vegas
month
was
off
Toro
of
from the spring.
re-renting them.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he didn't show it on taxes, so you just like you got 7 grand in car payments.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we probably
dang,
won't
how
crash
could
for
you do
another
that
5
without-
years.
I don't know. Who knows?
They don't
here's what I
consider
think
that
is
income?
Beautiful.
Well, they had the
If you
Or you
claim
don't
it,
have to
yesterday.
report it?
Yeah.
if you claim it, or do you? I just talked to another lady that
sure
just did her
everyone's
taxes
watching
from 2011.
I
What?
was
So yesterday I
18
talked to
December.
her. She hasn't done her taxes since 2011 and wants to buy a house.
Oh,
She hasn't done her
that's-
taxes?
That's a problem.
Yeah,
That's
I mean-
that's too much just to get the
is it a
CPA
problem
to do
if
them.
if I have a tax lien? Yes, yes it is.
Yeah.
Golly, I'm afraid to cross the center line on those toll roads, and people don't file their taxes.
I know,
My wife says, "You're a rule follower." I go, "Thank you."
Yeah.
Right. Back to the AI thing, I think what's awesome about it is, like you said, we're gonna be all retired or whatever. But I think the younger generation, these younger people in here, like, they're gonna adapt, like, they know way more than we do about computer stuff, and they'll adapt to this AI stuff that's just gonna be off the charts.
It's
Like,
all going to change.
and there may not be 6,000 realtors, there may be 1,000, but it's actually kind of exciting at the same time. But then you're talking about crash pads. You know, I could see real estate turning into something where people are literally buying rooms. You know, there's 5 people sharing a
Like
house,
China?
5
Is it
bedroom.
China? They
Can you
don't-
imagine that? And you're selling rooms on
That
the
sounds
MLS.
nice.
Well, that's kind of like
You
how
know, that would be incredible.
Or like they
Types of
also
stuff.
do
Yeah.
sweepstakes where they'll sell like 300,000 tickets for $1, right? But then make their money, and then somebody wins.
So my buddy that owns a painting
Yeah.
company, I have this old car that I was going to sell, and he's like, just do what all the Mexican painters do. And I was like, what? And he said they all sell tickets for $10. He says, instead of me selling the car for $3,000, he'll sell enough tickets at
Where you make your
$10 a
money.
pop to get $6,000, and then whoever wins it is happy because
Yeah.
they just paid 10 bucks for
$10
a
for a
car.
Genius,
Yeah.
that's like those online
Absolutely.
auction
Those
things.
yeah, where you pay like
Yeah.
six
Huh?
cents.
Like they're always buying
Absolutely.
tickets to win
I've
this
seen it
car.
on-
Yeah, but
All the
this
time.
is online
I was like,
I've seen it on Facebook before. Buy a ticket, buy a
Yeah.
ticket.
$1.50.
Oh, no, not that. Oh,
It's insane.
no.
It's all too much
They
today.
have those
Yeah.
online auctions.
I have too many
Yeah.
subjects in here
Yeah.
today.
But to think people used to like go somewhere for a service and they'd say, look, I'm out of money, but I can give you 4 chickens. And they're like, thank you. And now we're selling houses for rooms for
Trading bar.
How many eggs is that?
Well, it's not
artificially.
We're going from a paper world to a digital world.
Yeah.
Right? It's finally
I got too
changing.
much sleep last
So
night.
I mean,
too, bro.
even like real estate transactions they're going to go on the blockchain, right? Because it's
What's
more
the
secure.
blockchain?
So what
Like,
blockchain is?
Oh.
No, so blockchain is where to have a true transaction, different bits of the transaction are stored on different computers, right? So those computers all have to come together and agree, right? So that the transaction's true. And that's the way that they're saying that they're going to fight fraud in the future.
Oh, yeah, they have to fight
Right?
fraud.
So I mean,
So-
and it's already going that way. The elections are going to go on the
Yes.
blockchain.
The easy
Like-
way to think about it is like,
No, I've
say you have a password to log into something. Okay, but you have one letter, he has a
Yep.
letter, he's got a letter, he's got a letter. You all have to
And
come
they all
together
have to come
with
together.
the password.
Yes.
That's the block.
But
There's a
Something like
movie.
that.
There are
That
that
is-
hard.
Yeah.
See, that's the new generation that I'm
This
telling
is
you
what
about. They're
they're-
gonna learn it.
Yeah, it's like
The whole
Stuff.
crypto thing
Yeah.
Yeah.
is this,
Yeah.
is the next financial system.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
As what we're going into Web3 now with the internet, which means, and you've seen when you first got the internet, you couldn't make transactions over it, right? It was just like you could see things, and then it went to where you can make transactions. Now you're going to tokenize who you are and sell all your stuff via token. That's what they're doing right now, is tokenizing everything.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
So, as an old person, I'm still gonna need a realtor to help me figure all that crap
Well,
out.
that's what I thought of a
Think about
marketing
that.
idea.
Not
Realtor
necessarily.
Apocalypse.
Huh?
Realtor Apocalypse should be our new marketing.
Realtor
Not-
apocalypse.
Not
Why
necessarily,
do you
because they
need a
don't create
realtor?
the AI to
Real
walk
estate.
in.
Sick of stairs and realtor
Right?
apocalypse, man. I think you got it.
And it's
Yeah,
not.
so think about that. I
I'm
mean,
not kidding about the
this
realtor
whole-
apocalypse.
the whole
It is.
blockchain
This
stuff
is
and all
the
that
problem.
crap, I'm gonna need somebody to navigate that through. I can't just go to AI because I don't even know how to use AI.
But you can't.
They're
But
still
they can see. They
negotiating.
can create the AI, load it up with the script, right? Who will then explain everything to you, so they can create all that, right?
With
It doesn't have to be
intonation.
it doesn't have to be a human touch anymore.
But you have to know how to get there. If you're
Right.
an old
No, no.
person.
So I've had this conversation with Damon many times, and so what we have thought of how it could go is, let's say Zillow, okay, they have for sale by owners, but let's say they start getting other people to list, and now the owner is listing their house on Zillow. Okay, Zillow has the form of like, hey, what is your room size? What is it? So they just follow the form. Okay, then a buyer comes in, they say, I like this. And so then Zillow says, okay, well, here's a Zillow offer. Okay, click the Zillow offer, fill out whatever you need to do to make the offer. That goes straight to the seller. The seller agrees to it, and then the AI in the background will then, send the buyer like, hey, when do you want to do it in your inspection? And
Yep.
I want to do it at this time. Then it sends it to the seller. It's like, they want to do their inspection at this time. And they do their inspection. And then it's like, okay,
So
you
the
need to
AI
get-
is-
Redfin's probably already doing
yeah,
that.
And then
Yeah,
the
there's
AI says,
things
okay, you need to get insurance. Okay, then it says, okay, here's 5 different insurance companies that you can choose from.
They can
Click
look
on
at
the
that
insurance.
paid money
Yeah.
to be on their
On their
list.
Right,
thing,
you pay
the
money onto
preferreds.
it,
Yeah.
and so that's how they do every single step of the process.
That's how they automate
You don't
it.
even need an agent. You
Okay,
don't
but
need
then it
anything.
says you have an encroachment of an acre fence on your land, and the AI goes.
Yeah. Well, they might have some.
Now we need a human being to come in
Yes.
and tear out a fence.
Right.
Exactly.
That was a zombie apocalypse ad that you just did.
So they might have some personal touch here and there,
Yeah.
but like 90% of it they can automate.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
It's like going to
Real
Starbucks
apocalypse.
and ordering a large coffee, and they're like,
What's called?
what
it
is
can
that
be
do?
easy for long transactions.
Oh my god, I feel like I need a
But you think about that. I mean, I just looked at a deed for my brother in Maine, and it was from 1889.
And that
Was
weird
the
cursive.
original- It's a weird cursive, and it's in, you're doing steps from this
Yeah.
northeast, but you go to Stetson Hills, and you could AI that all day long.
Yes.
It's a lot and a block, and
Wow.
And a
it's
block track is
It'll be
easy.
an
Yeah.
interesting, but.
And
yeah.
once in a while,
especially
you
the
need
West,
to chat
right?
a live person,
Yeah.
and that's what we'll be.
They'll have an
Yeah.
attorney in the background or
Yeah.
something
They'll have
that.
you on salary. $30,000 a month.
And we'll
or,
complicate it. We'll
Everything's-
irritate everyone. And make it
Everything's
more
changing
difficult.
in our world.
So then,
Oh,
as
everything.
the realtor, your value comes for that pocket listing, not the one that goes out to the general public.
Yeah.
Or it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
But
hey,
the problem right now is that Zillow and all these places, they get their data from the MLS. So the MLS is the only thing stopping
yeah.
Mm.
Which
from
you
them
guys
taking
have,
over
we
right now.
Yes.
as
That's
paying
the
The
members,
only security right now is that we have the information
Yeah.
in our MLS.
Wow.
like back in the day, you remember the books, right?
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
but
oh yeah.
so here's
Yeah.
another
Big
thing.
MLS
So here's
books.
another thing though.
So don't join
Zillow-
that statewide MLS.
Right, but here's
Because we're
another
just
thing is
shooting ourselves
Zillow,
in the foot.
since they have all that that capability already, as they could say, hey, we will sell your house for $1,000.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so then an agent, or so then
Right.
just kind of like Redfin, everybody, they're like, we'll sell for a flat fee of whatever.
That's
you
where
know,
this
so
is going.
It's like
so now
Amazon.
all the sellers will be like, well, why am I hiring you for $12,000 when I could just go to Zillow
For $1,000, yeah.
And so that's how Zillow will then take all the listings from us.
From the MLS.
This is, and
That's
that's
what
their
my-
plan.
That's what my neighbor.
Well, that's what
used to do.
That's
Homes.com
what's
is
happening
planning
already,
too.
isn't it?
From
Yeah,
what's
that's
that
what they're doing.
company that you use?
Costa?
CoStar bought Homes.com, and the sales guy was talking to me, and he goes, "Yeah, CoStar's plan is to take over the MLS."
Yeah.
I went, "Whoa, you just
but
told
here-
me that, and
but
you want me to
here-
join you?"
But that's what Zillow did. I mean,
but,
that's
but
a,
here's another caveat here is the MLS distributes their data to thousands of websites. Okay, if you go and you list your house on Zillow, it's on one website. Okay, they can't distribute it to all the other
Right,
websites
right.
unless they start selling their
And-
data
or buying
to-
other-
But
right, other
Homes.com
places.
said they put it on 10,000 websites. So CoStar
So-
is gonna beat Zillow. I
And they're
think.
gonna transact with each other in the background
They could,
eventually,
yeah.
right?
That'll be
Okay, I'm afeared. I'm totally afraid.
You're a-
I would wait.
Another job?
Like they say, what is it? April 4th or something like that. Like this is what
That's when Sam will graduate. in
what's his name? Jerome Powell just said because
Yeah.
right like that. He said that the tariffs are what's offset, what's screwing with interest rates right now. But the tariffs don't go in effect until like April 4th,
Nobody's gonna
April
go to
2nd,
because of-
right? So let's see what happens with all that, right?
Yeah, I think
it's going to stimulate our economy.
Yeah, Amanda, I think that when you say, should I look for another job? No, because
No.
I think that there's a lot of us older people that are still gonna want relational people.
I hope so. I
You
feel
know,
like
maybe your
technology's just taking
kids,
over everything.
It is.
right,
That's
your
so scary.
kids or something, maybe start shopping online with like no big deal, you know, but, all the boomers and Xers and stuff, we're still
They're
gonna
still
want,
gonna be doing
I'm
stuff
not
for
gonna want
years.
AI to go through, I don't know how.
Well, and those older
That'll
folks, they're
happen.
not going to really deal with it. They're on their way out, right?
I think
It
my
is
fear
actually-
is like with all the AI, with everything kind of taken over, you know, it's going to push jobs for people out. So people are not going to be able to afford to do anything. So, you know, that's
Yeah.
also going to
Well,
limit.
you-
But this is where the
It's a
tokenization of all this
cycle.
stuff.
Everybody will adapt.
Anytime a job is taken, there's another job open because
Oh.
you have to adapt.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but just if
Yeah.
it's all geared towards.
Can't grow fins.
Like right now, the baseline,
Electronics
or
and
let's say
AI
like
and-
the bottom worker right now is at McDonald's, whatever. Well, when when everything gets so advanced, the bottom worker might be a programmer who's programming AI, and that's the bottom line. They're an electrical engineer. That's like the bottom of the bottom because everybody else is starting to
Yeah.
go up. You know, so the bottom line just starts to increase,
Right.
and then all the bottom jobs get eliminated.
Well, I think it was Elon Musk, like 4 or 5 years ago, said, you know, we're going to have a socialist society because the technology is going to jump. People are going to. There's no jobs for people because you can do it
The whole
without
society
jobs.
changes.
Mhm.
We
You
can't.
know,
we're-
it's like, you know, they used to dig ditches with shovels. Now they use big old track hose, right? They used to have 10 people working at McDonald's. Now they have 2 people because you punch it in. I was at a Dunkin' Donuts the other day and I'm waiting for the guy to take my order. I just wanted a stupid coffee. And this person comes up next to me. I'm there for like 10 minutes. There's a guy back there, you know, and I'm like, and finally this person comes up and there's a little screen right there. I thought it was like an advertisement.
Yeah.
And she goes, puts out her credit card and I'm like, okay,
This is where it's.
hi, I'm the old guy.
Right, yeah, right.
Self-checkout, man. Self-checkout.
Yeah.
The grocery store, I hate
it's
it.
like segregating humans too. Like we need that interaction with each
They
other.
even have the AIs that can talk to you, and they have faces and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So like,
Yeah,
you
I
want
get-
personal interaction, they'll just stick an AI there. You won't even know the difference.
Half those scam calls that are calling you is all AI stuff. You know.
It is, I look at it from the loan side, and that last year the cost to produce a loan was about $14,000. So that's paying underwriters, you know, like a company's cost to execute and sell a loan was about 14 grand. So if you can eliminate $100,000 a year underwriter, $100,000
better for
a
your
year
bottom line.
processor,
Right.
commissions
Be
to
more
a loan
competitive.
officer by automating that process down to the point of, you know, again, those, like, all that technology's there for someone to go through a web app, give authorization to pull their W-2s from the IRS, their pay stub from Paychex. If, you know, if they're an employee of whatever company, they get their bank statements pulled from their bank, and it's like that.
Right.
It's an approval like that,
Yeah, right.
instantaneous approval, and you've eliminated maybe that AI then costs you $2,000 to kick out a mortgage-backed security versus 14, and now your rate goes lower, you know, because you don't have to build as much in. Does
Right, right, wow.
But the buyer doesn't have a job anymore.
There's
See,
a
they-
cycle, there's an effect
Yeah.
in it though, because what happens to that person and that job, you know, and it's, that money's gonna come from
What are
somewhere
you willing to
else.
work for? So when we were at Nova, we used to outsource Gary Malice on the company. If anybody remembers First Magnus, do you remember that name
Yes,
back
I
in the
remember
day?
First Magnus.
So Gary owned First Magnus, and that went belly up. But so Gary created, he got us to use it at Nova, but he had a bunch of doctorate educated Indians. We were sending stuff to India, but they would underwrite our stuff overnight. So you do an application, we'd submit it to underwriting. They had they were all educated in America. They just lived in,
Such a crap
they
model.
lived in India, and so our cost to produce that loan just went down by 4 times.
That's why we have all
And
this
so
outsourced.
it went, because it's not less intelligent people, but
The title
it's probably
companies
smarter.
do it.
It's probably smarter
Yeah.
people
We have
looking at it,
all
but they're
of
just
our
following a
production comes
checklist.
from
They're
that.
just doing they're just doing all the checking boxes. That's all we're doing.
First American
These
started
guys
that
seem
outsourcing
very
years
Terminator.
ago, and everybody followed.
Well, I look at it as a positive thing, because, you know, it seems like it's doom and gloom, because part of me is going, I have fear over all this, but at the same time, I'm like, my costs should go down.
Yeah.
Everything.
Absolutely.
Right? For utilities,
Right.
for everything that you do should go down. So if I had to make a little less money adapting somehow, that's okay, because it's gonna bring everything down. If it's bringing the cost of loans down,
Right.
interest rates down,
We're changing
labor
from
will become the most expensive
we're changing
thing.
from an
Labor
indentured
is
servant
the
society,
right.
Somebody somewhere making
Right.
money
Well,
on it.
but at some
or a
point-
slave
I gotta
society.
get me
We're
a grow
changing
house.
from that, right? We might have a little more power, right? Because that's all we're doing is working and paying bills now, right?
Yeah.
So I think, and we can't right now.
Okay,
There's
so
so
let's to wrap this up.
Getting so deep.
How many years do you think, like, before
the
you see
camera.
major changes like
Grok
an
says within
MLS
10.
disappearing?
Grok
Between
says
5
within
and 10.
5 to 10.
Who's Grok?
Grok is AI,
It's
Elon Musk's AI,
Oh,
and it's built into Twitter, so it scrubs everything.
says
And Twitter's the
10
number
years.
one news channel, right? So it scrubs everything.
It's a science fiction book called from Robert Heinlein.
yeah.
I'm a science fiction freak.
Oh,
but
cool.
The grok means to like completely, fully understand in every conceivable way. So
Okay.
when you grok something, it's not just like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. No, it's almost like you're
You live it,
being
breathe it.
understood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
that thing is
Wow.
scrubbing
Yeah.
years of Twitter, right? Like
Our
finding
OC
everything.
How fast AI is advancing last
It's insane.
year.
Yeah.
I mean, then add 10 more years of it increasing at an exponential
It'll take
rate.
everything
Okay,
over.
so Grok says 10 years for what?
5 to 10 years to get where every state is on smart contracts, and that we've gone into a more digital,
Oh, it's a new era.
of sales.
Okay, well then we got at least minimum 5 years to make tons of money.
Make tons of money.
And then we still might make more with the AI because that stuff's coming out.
Well, I think
It's
there's
gonna
going to be
help
more
us
business
specialize.
opportunities for
Yes,
you to soak your
exactly.
money into, so that you don't have to work later down the road, right? This AI
Right.
thing will do it. You make your money by investment,
Wow.
right?
That's
We'll see.
interesting.
We'll see how it goes. Everything is so like unknown right now.
Yeah.
We're in such an unknown territory with everything.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about that, just the term grok. I mean, that was written a long time ago. It's like Stranger in a Strange Land, I think it's called, the book. And it talks about that. I mean, so the fact that he's actually sort of saying, I'm going to call this grok, it basically is hastening. I mean, he's like 1,000 steps ahead of
Everybody.
mortals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's got to be some downside. So when you're saying socialism or whatever, then all these things are handled for you. You don't need a job. Well, then how do you have free will of getting the house you want?
Well, you don't own nothing
So,
in
that's
life.
right.
on the
Yeah.
You own nothing.
So you get issued a house or
Yeah.
whatever, and I don't
That's
quite
exactly.
agree with that.
Well, and you
can
can see how there's
Right,
certain
totally.
players in the world that want things to go that way. You
there's a
know?
lot of like half our country.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a reason why there's Mayan ruins and all these different
That's
ruins.
right.
Yeah.
because the people take over and go, no, we're not having
We're-
this
yeah,
crap
right.
anymore.
I don't know. I think
Exactly.
that
Or
train
immigration
has left the station. I
knocks
think
it
that's
over.
like horse out of the
Yeah.
barn, whatever you want to say. I mean, you know, I don't think you can walk back the technology part of it.
Not now,
you know?
no.
No, you can't, but you can destroy it.
I don't
Or
think
you can put it in hands
I
of
think
good
it's too
people.
smart to be
Right.
destroyed.
I'll find
Oh,
you
It's
one.
you
the
can't.
wrong
You
people.
shut off
Find me
electricity.
one
It's
of those
gone.
good people that are
Right?
going to take control
It's
of
just
it.
that all of our technology is in
You
like
get an
black hands
EV.
right now.
Wait, you're telling
Right?
me
That's
it-
why
it
you're not
can-
seeing
it-
new
it
Those are the
medical
ones that are
control an
gonna
atom
keep it. They're
bomb
not
on
gonna
an
do
electrical plant.
Yeah,
plant?
that's what this
Probably
fight is
not.
about.
I think
I don't know
actually
how.
plays-
I don't think they're going to.
I don't know if it makes me-
Unless it's robots, like.
I do. I feel a little
robots.
overwhelmed. I took this way too
Want to meet
today.
at BJ's?
Technology
We'll go get a drink.
is like a supercomputer
Yeah,
is
so
in
I'll let you
every one
know
of
It's just a
these
lot.
things.
Yeah,
It's in your
yeah.
refrigerator.
I'll
it's
text
in
you about
your
the
washing
Thursday
Yeah,
thing if
please.
you want to go.
That'd be cool.
So
Thank you.
something that's connected.
It's just a
to
ton.
everything that has Bluetooth.
Good to see you.
Anything that's plugged
Hi,
into an
Ben.
outlet
Yeah.
that can be accessed from somewhere in the world, anywhere in the world, through all of these little channels of electricity and Ethernet and any of it. Right? See that? Just listen to me. It's
like-
it flashed its light.
It's all-
It's going, hey dude, you know too much.
Well, and that's what all that.
No, that was funny.
That's
Your
like-
phone just flashed its light at me.
Yeah.
It heard me.
That's AI winking at me like, I'm gonna screw you in about 10 years, dude.
Yeah.
That's what all this
blowing
stuff is
everything
doing, is listening and learning human nature.
You're on the
Right.
list.
You just got added
So-
to the enemy list.
I mean, your own privacy, right? So think about 10 years ago, you used to get a bank statement. When was the last time you got a paper bank statement?
Yeah, you have to opt for it.
I get them.
I like 'em.
make them give it to me. And they're like,
Yeah.
we're gonna charge you. Like, do your best.
Yeah.
When they said, do you want a receipt, paper, or
Yeah.
email? I go, yeah, I want paper.
Paper.
I want you to spend money.
I know. I hate
Yeah,
trees.
every time I get on to like my credit card statement,
That's what I do too.
they've got it all ready for me. If I just hit
That's
answer,
why you
I'm
have a
going
Hell
paper.
yeah.
And I don't want to. It's
Yeah.
it's easier for me to keep because I get so much crap.
Which is why
email.
we'll always have a job,
Otherwise
because
they
there's
won't
people like us.
Yeah.
Like they need somebody
You
to
know,
walk
'cause
us through it,
that's-
and train us.
I think you're always gonna need some form of human touch.
Yeah.
At some point.
There's always going to be a need for
Well,
customer service.
the-
somewhere
Yeah.
down
They
the
have
line.
One
to
piece of
marry up
AI that
the
is
document.
keeping it from crossing to the next stage is that AI cannot think for itself
It's,
yet.
right, yeah.
It
I'm
can
just
only
saying it's a
collect
wonderful-
data and tell you what the data says.
I'll make
It
up a
has to get
program
its
if I
answer
have
from
to.
somewhere
Yeah.
else. It cannot come up
It
with its
can.
own
It can
answer.
come up
And they're
with
probably
its
putting a
own.
firewall on that
just like-
so that they can
Right.
keep
You ever been
it from.
audited?
Because if you heard
That
some
can
of the.
only go so far. I mean,
And they
Yeah.
don't care about marrying.
it's going to
Oh, man,
outthink
we
it's
get
it's
fined.
going to outthink us faster than
Right.
it's going to.
Yeah, they go through.
Yeah, all the
every single
movies,
file.
you
The audit?
see it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But like I said, you know, right now, none of us can fathom what the future will look like because of what we've seen
Because
in
it's
our
the
lives,
same
right? And so we think it'll be more of the same, the way that it operates, and I don't think that this is.
Well, but think about
Files.
10 years ago. Think about 20 years ago
Yeah.
of what we have now.
How much paper was involved?
I
Yeah,
started my
The
car
last time we got audited was
at the terminal.
Right.
and
Okay,
they
it's
just sat there
cold.
for like a week. They were just
Doesn't it
every single
freak
I
you
got
out, man?
there.
Like if you can start your car, somebody could just
Somebody else
steal
could
it.
do it too.
Somebody hacking your phone and steal your car
Yeah.
like that.
Documentation.
It freaks me out, man.
You know,
Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know what? And guess what? Oh, they stole my car.
Well, they say
Oh,
technology.
now I have a new one.
And
I
he's
got a new one waiting out
he's
there.
8 blocks from here. Let's go.
They say technology is only as good as the hands that it's in.
Yeah.
Right.
What's that movie with Tom Cruise?
Right, yeah,
where
they
he-
can't do it.
where they
Oh, yeah.
predicted
Wow.
They
predict
predict-
crime
yeah.
before
And he's like moving every. Is that the one where he's
They don't
moving the
really
ball?
have as many.
I can't
No,
remember.
no, it was
And it was like the little ball.
He predicts crime.
Minority Report.
Minority Report, yeah.
But you know how they have the cars, and then they can shut the car down and lock the
Yeah.
doors.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
You know, well, that's like Tesla. I mean,
I've been saying that.
Elon could basically close all
Did you
those.
hear
and
though?
shut them down.
They can
Somebody decided to Wile E. Coyote the Tesla
Yes.
car that can drive itself. They
And
put up a sheet that looked like a road, and it turned and drove right through the sheet.
Yeah, it
Oh.
Shit.
Really?
Uh-huh.
So we're gonna
Yeah.
be learning new skills on how to trick the AI.
I saw a bunch of those in Phoenix,
Could go,
like
like,
right
based
out of
off
the
of
Phoenix
GPS.
airport. There was
Is
all
it
kinds
the
of
same
those
that I guess some of
self-driving
their
taxis.
Corneas
ones
replant-
too? Like,
Yeah.
it's got
It was
off of,
nuts.
like,
The minority
they have
report, you
videos
just get your
and stuff,
eyes like
whatever the
I don't
video
trust
says,
that.
they
It's
can
not
just
self-driving.
the scan. Remember that? Like that?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.